Assalamu alaikum. My name is Salih, formerly Mark. I reverted to Islam just over 2 years ago, September the 28th, 2015. Alhamdulillah. That was like the first day of my life, so to speak. Alhamdulillah. I haven't really looked back. It's been difficult, but the guidance is unmistakable, and once I had it, I never wanted to let it go. Now, my background is from officially Christian. The official religion was Christianity, but my parents never really practiced that much, although my mother believed more than my father. To this day, my father is, I think, is it agnostic, where he doesn't deny, but he doesn't confirm. He just doesn't know. So he's a very, he believes with his senses, what he can see, what he can hear, etc., etc. Now, my mother, to my knowledge, is still a Christian. So, getting back to my background, we went to things like, uh, the chapel, and we went to the church for weddings and funerals and christenings maybe, but we didn't go to Sunday school or Sunday mass or regular Sunday services. We only went to the chapel side of it when there was youth clubs, and there was a little bit of religion thrown in there. But to encapsulate all this, the Trinity and the three into one, I was always confused by. Every time I sat in a church, I was always confused and I felt out of place and I didn't belong there. When you can't articulate what you feel, especially when you're young. You can't say I'm going home because you have to stay there with them, And at funerals and things, you have to show respect. But I always felt uncomfortable on those wooden benches in the church. And some of the people were fantastic, don't get me wrong. It's just the environment and what I was being taught, it just absolutely did not click with me. Although I did believe in God, but I was never convinced that Isa, or Jesus, may peace be upon him, was God. Now, as a young boy, I wasn't as intellectually minded and articulate as I am now, but that belief is in your heart that you can't explain, and you're a child just trying, to do the best with what you have, really. So that was a little flavour of my upbringing. I went, oh, by the way, incidentally, I moved to Germany when I was 9, and in my school there were 3 groups. Now in the UK, there's something called religious education or religious studies, where no matter if you was a Christian, a Hindu, a Sikh or a Muslim, whatever, you learned the same things about, comparative religions and, a secular based, which is, it has its own benefits. But in Germany, the classes were, okay, the Protestants among us stayed in the main classroom, okay? The Catholics got taken into the annex, like the little room beside the classroom, and the Bosnians, which I now know were Muslims, were taken to a completely different part of the school altogether, and we'd actually have religious services that catered to our religion. So that in itself had the benefits as well. So I think that was my first taste and sample of Muslims and Islam, although it didn't really, occur to me. It didn't make much sense, nor did I even care much about it, Again, I was just a child trying to do my best. Now, if we can just fast forward past a few teenage years of stupidity and foolishness, we will arrive at the 9/11, September the 11th, 2001, I believe. When those towers came down, I was a media student in Neath College, and just before the towers came down, the course started. Now, just before the day, I think it was like a day or two before the towers came down, we was given a media, how to say, a journalistic project where we had to find a story and do our best to write, like a tabloid article about it. So lo and behold, I was thinking, what can I write about? And I write about football, about music. What's it going to be? But the towers fell down. And so, like a sheep, I followed the herd. And my main source of information was the British mainstream media. And all over the media, there were pictures of Muslims. And Bin Laden in particular. His name came out very, very quickly. So I was being told that Muslims were aggressive, brainwashed, radicalized, anti-Christian, anti-West killers. Now, I'm not much of a genius, and I definitely am no mathematician, but there's a mathematical problem somewhere. If all these billions of people around the world are killers, and particularly 1 to 2 million Muslims in the UK are killers, and if they were all armed and angry, there'd be a lot of carnage and destruction, and a lot of us would be dead or in prison or being raped or butchered or oppressed or persecuted. But none of these things were happening. These things were being force-fed into our minds, but in reality, none of these things were actually happening. So that was a mathematical problem that didn't sit easy with me. So alhamdulillah, it didn't tarnish my opinion about Islam. I just went along with the official line, yeah. Incidentally, I quit that course because, again, I was still young and dumb and just wanted to have some fun. So I quit the course and, went off to do other things. So this thing about Islam went to the back of my mind. Now, for 7 years, they were what I like to call the rock and rot years, where I just plunged into darkness as an atheist. I was looking for meaning in my life through drugs, maybe yoga, and expanding my consciousness, which in reality was killing brain cells and bringing a lot of trouble and strife to my family, my mother in particular. May Allah reward her for showing sabr and patience with me. I love her to bits. So from 2001, it was like that till 2009, where in 2009, I got posted as a civilian in a welfare facility in Helmand province in Afghanistan. Now, 9/11, in the eyes of the official American line, led us to go to Afghanistan. Another time, I was very, I loved the British forces and the soldiers. I had so much respect for them, and, we're out there doing our duty. Nonsense. So I got to Afghanistan. So I was in a Muslim country, in a war zone, basically. I was near the front line, but I was away from it a little bit. I saw some things, some rockets flying over and some casualties coming in. My brother and I, a long-time friend, he died while I was out there, so it was very hard hitting home. It was hard. There's no way about that. But I got to meet real Muslims, practicing Muslims, in a war-torn country, and they had nothing. They may have had a little bread and, scarce bits of tea, but what they did have was cleanliness. Cleanliness 5 to 6 to 7 times a day. And I saw them standing up to what I thought them was praying. They were standing and praying in a certain direction. When I got to talk to them, their manners and their character were great. They were helpful. They spoke quite eloquent English. They spoke Arabic. They spoke Urdu. They spoke their own languages, Farsi, Dari, and Pashto. And some of them a little bit of Russian and all this. So these are quite eloquent and educated people. When on the news, all you see are, sandals and turbans, and they're all angry. That's the official line. This is crazy, But so they really, really changed my perception of something that I had an inkling of before, that all the Muslims cannot be killers, and they confirmed this. And not only did they confirm it, they enhanced that. And while talking to these what I now call brothers, I was looking around left and right, and a lot of the British soldiers I found to be really jumped up, arrogant and racist, particularly from the northern towns and the Scotch towns and the Welsh boys as well. So the people I was out there representing and had respect for, I was slowly losing respect for these people and gaining respect for these other people. Again, it goes to the back of the mind, and I go home and move on with my life. Now, after Afghanistan, I met a girl. I was a musician at the time, a working musician, struggling musician, but working all the same. I moved in with her. I had children. I had 2 children with her, and it was family life with, the struggles that brings, but it was kind of balancing and leveling off. Now, through a Facebook group, I was a big fan of the David Bowie. I met someone on a Facebook group, and she told me, look, there's a festival out here that you can play as a musician. So I thought that was brilliant. I was riding a high anyway. I was so close to something, but I didn't know what. And during that period, I was chasing success, basically. I was artistically inclined, but I wanted a little bit of mainstream success, or quite a lot of mainstream success, actually, to provide, because by the time I had daughters, I didn't want to be a tortured soul anymore. I just wanted to provide them with, thousands and millions, basically. So I hit this festival in Sweden, and I hit it hard, networking, making friends. I had to give up drinking by that point, but I was buying people beers. I was doing the circuits, going from this place, what's your Facebook, WhatsApp, blah, 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 hitting it. And I was just on the very brink of it, when this person was a disabled lady, the person who helped me. I stayed with her. She had a worker who was a Muslim, and she said, I love Jesus. And I said, what? You love Jesus? She said, yeah. How can you love Jesus? You're a Muslim. She said, yes. You cannot be a Muslim if you don't love Jesus. So I thought, okay, that's strange. So I said, tell me something else. So she said, not only do we love Jesus, we love Jesus more than the Christians do. I said, I got you now, that's just nonsense. She's like, what's so funny about that? I said, well, Christians, they worship Jesus. And she said, they worship Jesus. So I said, what do you mean? She said, we don't worship Jesus. We love him as a prophet and a man who was born and who will die. And very sharp, she used the present tense, which in Islam perfectly coincides. And I said, okay. And she said, they worship him, and they put him to a status which they're totally forbidden to. And then she told me how Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam was the final piece of the jigsaw, and previous to him was Jesus, was Moses, was Abraham, was Noah, was Adam. And wallahi, by the one who created me and the one who created you, it felt like a sledgehammer. Now for you non-English speakers, really, a sledgehammer is a big hammer that knocks like walls down and things. It felt like one of them smashed my heart to pieces. And I was shaking And I was breathing like, but very quickly, alhamdulillah, it all came back together. This was the last piece of the jigsaw that I was looking for. All them years ago, not believing in Trinity and not being convinced by Christianity, and all those years of darkness where I looked into Judaism, Buddhism, Jainism, nihilism, existentialism, communism, Satanism. When I was a musician, I was making dua to the dark forces following dark people, you know. This is the qadr, this is the will of Allah, that my journey was this type of struggle. And alhamdulillah, that very day she said, I love Jesus, everything came crumbling down and quickly put back together. It's like my brain was rewired and my heart was rewired. So I went back home after the festival thinking, okay, I have to do something about this. I can't deny this anymore. So every day I was Googling Islam. And the people close to me, I was saying, look what Islam says about you as a girlfriend, or you as a family member, or society in general, and about the truth, and how people who came with the truth were either called mad, liars, sorcerers, all this, or they were just frowned upon or ignored. And I was being frowned upon and ignored, so it clicked to me that this was the truth, actually, and yes, I do want this. So I went back to Sweden. I didn't tell anyone my true intention. My official line was, I'm going there to be a care worker for my friend, which I did. No, that wasn't a lie. It was just my safety net, basically. But my true intention was to embrace Islam. I got back to Sweden. I got back to the room that I previously stayed in, and I silently Googled how to become a Muslim. And so I wrote the words, the most simple shahada or testification, La ilaha illallah Muhammadar Rasulullah. And I wrote it down on a piece of paper, and I just repeated it over and over and over again until I fell asleep. And I don't know how long I fell asleep for, but it was the same the middle of the day. And I woke up all of a sudden. I looked for the piece of paper because it had become my best friend just before I fell asleep. I couldn't find the piece of paper anywhere. I thought, okay. I breathed. La ilaha illallah Muhammadar Rasulullah. And I knew then that I had become a Muslim. And after I'd said that, I found the piece of paper. So I thought, okay. I said to my friend, I'm going out. Where are you going? I'm going to the library. So I signed in the library as a guest, and I obtained a copy of an Arabic, Farsi, which is the Iranian language, Farsi, and English. So 3 languages in the Quran. I took it to a riverside. Now, this is a completely foreign city. I don't know many people, and it's a very cold city, windy. Alhamdulillah. I went to the riverside, and it was nice and fresh, and I had this book wrapped up in a towel or a t-shirt, maybe. Allah knows best. I had it wrapped up, and so I looked left, I looked right, I looked left again to make sure no one was looking. Nobody knew me. Didn't really matter who cared, and there was no one there anyway. It was by a riverside. So I opened the book, and on the first page, in the name of Allah, the most gracious, the most merciful. Praise be to Allah, the Lord of the worlds, the most gracious, the most merciful, owner of the Day of Judgment. You alone do we worship. You alone do we ask for help. Guide us to the straight way. And I can't remember the exact word in. To the way of those on whom thou hast bestowed thy grace, not those who have earned thy wrath, or those who have wandered astray. Now, that's paraphrasing, I don't know the exact translation, but that very same sledgehammer that hit me in that room and in that city 3 weeks previously, it happened again. But it was much more pain-free, and it took... my heart came back together much quicker again. So again, this is a confirmation of the truth. This is it. Now, these words, although it wasn't the Arabic Quran, and it was only a poor translation, I knew that it was the truth, because previously I was a songwriter and I was into song meanings and subtext and form, and knowing that there's a lot more going on than the literal words that I'm being given. Excuse me. So I was impressed. I was overawed. So I said, right, I want to do this. Now, previously on the website, it had told me you only have to testify to these words, but it's good and it's recommended to do it in a congregation in front of 2 witnesses, I believe. But basically go to a mosque and say your shahada, declare your Islam. So I went to an Iraqi restaurant, and alhamdulillah, I retrospectively found out they were on the Sunnah. They weren't, on the Shia. They were practicing Muslims. So I said, brother, how do I become a Muslim? Where do I go? He said, let me phone my father. His father came within 10 minutes and took me to the mosque. No problem. He didn't ask for anything. He said, yes, I'll do it. He's looking for rewards, hasanat from Allah. So it was Maghrib. It was just dawning upon Maghrib when I got there, and the student of knowledge talked to another student of knowledge, and they were basically asking me, are you here of your own accord? Which basically means, are you being forced to come here? I said no. They said, do you believe in one God? I said yes. Do you believe that Muhammad was a messenger? I said yes. Do you believe that Moses was a messenger? Yes. Do you believe that Jesus is a messenger? I said yes. And they looked at each other. They said, okay, sit down over there. And there was like a seating area just behind the jama'ah, the congregation. So I watched them pray Maghrib. I watched them observe their Salatul Maghrib, and that was my first taste of Quran live. And it was so beautiful. I thought I'm definitely in the right place. But I thought to myself, though, this is a massive step that I'm about to take. I thought I could easily just walk out now and run, and no one would know the difference, because none of my family knew, none of my friends knew, and none of the existing Swedish people that I knew. It was just those handful of people that I didn't know. I've only just met. I thought I could easily just run and take the easy option, but I froze. And I was stuck there in a positive state of it's like petrification, but not petrified in the sense of being afraid. Petrified in the sense of being stuck there, rock solid. This is what I'm going to do. So after Salatul Maghrib, they didn't let the brothers make their dhikr. They didn't let the brothers read their sunnah. They said, someone's going to take shahada. And now this video is on YouTube, so I'll link you up with this video, or Brother Muhammad al-Bashari will link us up, inshallah. So yeah, that was my shahada. And it was by a small, beautiful Somali sheikh. And Allahu Alam where he is now, because incidentally, that masjid that I took shahada has burnt down. So may Allah grant our brothers and sisters in Örebro, Sweden, a permanent place to read their salat and educate their children, and may it be a source of strength for the community and the wider Swedish community. Ameen. And since then I've retained a lifelong friend in my brother Abdus Salam, and a few other brothers that I've kept hold of, alhamdulillah. So that was my lead up to the Shahada. By the way, the Shahada was the most intense, beautiful moment of my life. And I haven't really looked back since. Like I've said, I've had difficulties, but there's no going back. Inshallah, may Allah take me and may He take you in a state of pure Islam. Now, one of the reasons why I had to go to Sweden or had to go somewhere to embrace Islam was I knew I'd have a backlash because of the nature of where I'm from. It's a small working class industrial town. So it's, there are quite a few people actually who I thought would react very badly and oppress me basically. And I was right as well, because when I was fairly well established in Sweden, the Sheikh said, right, you have to go home now and be with your people and, establish Islam there. Aqimu Salah. So I did, and it was very, very, very difficult. Things thrown at me, Allahu Akbar, they were shouting, Allahu Akbar, have you got a bomb in your bag? Why don't you eat bacon? Some of them are very mundane, benign things. But there were some people from my past who I loved. And they really went to town on it. And there was death threats and violence and all kinds of things. Alhamdulillah, I'm not feeling sorry for myself, but the reason why I went to Sweden is to embrace Islam in safety, and when I returned, that safety kind of disappeared. So, post Shahada, there was a lot of things to deal with, but to cut the long story short, from then till now, alhamdulillah, things have leveled off, and I'm still fighting with my shaitan and my inner nafs, but alhamdulillah, I think the people who I surround myself with now are beautiful people, and my family have accepted me fully as a Muslim, and that I'm not radicalized, I'm not extreme, and I'm not rejecting the good points of my culture. I'm just, inshallah, a cleaner version of who I was. So I don't want this video to ramble on too much, because someone poked a little fun at me on my live show for rambling on too much. So I don't want this to be a monologue, but look, I'm just speaking from my heart, and I hope, inshallah, that even if one person can benefit, I'm benefiting from it myself just by going through it retrospectively. So alhamdulillah, I pray that we're all steadfast, and may Allah open the doors and grant us goodness. I would like to leave you with a little advice, inshallah, to anyone who is thinking of becoming a Muslim, or specifically those who have just become Muslims. Alhamdulillah, I'm so happy for you, whether you're about to or you just have. I have maybe 1, 2, maybe 3 pieces of advice. 1, embrace Islam to please Allah, and everything else will follow, inshallah, God willing. 2, knowledge. With knowledge, take bite-sized pieces of knowledge and take your time to ponder over them. Accept them if they are true, reject them if they are not true. If they are true, internalize them, really think about it, then act upon it. Once you've acted upon it, you can teach it, and that will become a source of everlasting charity for you, inshallah. Now, the third one is with knowledge as well, but this the antithesis of taking it easy. Now I drank a lot of coffee to substitute the intoxicants that I gave up. So it was coffee basically. And I took in so much knowledge, reading so many translation verses and chapters of the Quran, that I filled my head and body with knowledge that I couldn't act upon because it was so much. My body was just shaking, and I couldn't handle it. I couldn't handle it. Alhamdulillah, I've leveled off now. But just take it. Don't overdo it, and don't burden yourself. Because Allah wants ease for you. That's all He wants, is ease and your comfort in your religion. You'll be tested, but just take it easy on yourself. Don't beat yourself up. Don't be too ambitious. Do everything within your means, inshallah. There is more advice actually. Learn how to read the Arabic Quran now. Just learn it as quickly as possible and as effectively as possible. I delayed this and it stunted my growth. Alhamdulillah, I can read the Quran now with its proper tajweed and pronunciation. But it took me a while, and I could have done with it when I really needed it in the early days. But alhamdulillah, this is the predestination and power of Allah. The next bit and final piece of advice: social media or in real life, don't argue with people about Islam. Don't beat them over the head, so to speak, with verses from the Quran and how they are living, a disbelieving, heretic lifestyle. Just take it easy. Keep your mouth shut. There was a person who called his family to Islam for 8 years. 8 years. He said, Islam, 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 Allah, 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 Quran, 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 Prophet, 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 Sunnah, Sunnah, Sunnah. But they basically said, shut your mouth. For 8 years. They loved him, they tolerated him but they basically didn't want to know because he went too hardcore with it. Now, 8 months after those, he stopped. 8 years later, he said, I've had enough of this, and this is doing more harm than good. So 8 months after he made that decision to stop, his mother and his father testified to the oneness of Allah and that Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam was the messenger. Because, do you know why? Because he had stopped beating them over the head with it, and he just let his character, his good deeds, his adab, his manners, they took over. So 8 months after the 8 years, they embraced Islam. So Facebook is a minefield. I sincerely advise you not to announce on Facebook, I am a Muslim. I sincerely advise you to just talk to your friends on the inboxes and just talk to your selected group of people that you trust. So look, I've known you for quite some time now. I've just become a Muslim. Smile. And, then you'll find out who's who. If they support you, they're your friends. If not, just leave them for a little time. فَمَهِّلِ الْكَافِرِينَ أَمْهِلْهُمْ رُوَيْدًا. So just leave the disbelievers for a time. Be kind to them, respect them, but please establish yourself in your religion. Make sure you ground yourself in knowledge first before you start taking on the world. We have to learn to look before we even crawl. We have to learn to crawl before we walk. We have to learn to walk before we run. So I'm still a baby. I've just learned how to walk. I'm just standing on my feet. I'm 2 years old. I think you understand what that means. 2 years ago, I took my Shahada. Now today, there was a brother, Rex his name is, make dua for him because he took Shahada in the masjid, in the mosque today. So he is a newborn baby, free and pure. Alhamdulillah. May Allah forgive all our sins. and may He guide us to what is correct and make us satisfied with it. May He test us in the worldly life, but not test us in our religion. May He guide us to eternal goodness. So, my dear brothers and sisters, that was my journey. That was, inshallah, a little friendly advice, welcome advice, inshallah. I'm going to end with some Quran, some dua, and the final salam, inshallah. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم ألف لام ميم ذلك الكتاب لا ريب فيه هدى للمتقين الذين يؤمنون بالغيب ويقيمون الصلاة ومما رزقناهم ينفقون والذين يؤمنون بما أنزل إليك وما أنزل من قبلك وبالآخرة هم يوقنون أولئك على هدى من ربهم وأولئك هم المفلحون صدق الله العظيم. Those were the opening verses of the second surah or chapter of Al-Quran, Surah Al-Baqarah, the chapter of the cow. Those were verse 1 to verse 5 ayat. My dear brothers and sisters, I will post links on the comment box to my page that I'm teaching Quran and Islamic studies to reverts and children. So inshallah, we can connect with each other, and if you have any questions to ask or have any advice for me, because I'm wide open to advice, inshallah, please feel free to message me or comment in the box, and whichever way you'd like to contact me, inshallah ta'ala, excuse me. Thank you so much for your patience. Jazakumullahu kulli khayran. Barakallahu feekum. ربنا تقبل منا إنك أنت السميع العليم. Ya Rabb, O Lord, accept this from us. Verily, you are the hearing, the knowing. ربنا آتنا في الدنيا حسنة. Our Lord, grant us good in this life. وفي الآخرة حسنة. And grant us good in the hereafter. وَقِنَا عَذَابَ النَّارِ. And protect us from the punishment of the hellfire. My dear brothers and sisters in Islam, until next time, we say, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu.